Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. The beginning of another fantastic week here on Mother Earth, our great and glorious space of existence. I'm thankful to join you. I am thankful to you for joining me. So let's begin today with our regular starting practice of breathing. So we're going to breathe in through our nose, hold, and breathe out through our mouth. We'll get centered and then we'll begin today's lesson. So let's begin. In through the nose, hold, out through the mouth. In through the nose, hold, out through the mouth. Continue. In through the nose, hold, out through the mouth. Open your eyes if you have them closed. Wiggle your fingers and wiggle your toes and return to your body, your vehicle. Good morning. I am the presence of God wherever I am. And so are you. And so are you. And we occupy and are given flexibility by the use of this three-dimensional body in this three-dimensional plane. And this three-dimensional body has requirements, and it is trained by our parents and by the society we live in, by the religion we were raised in, by the particular group that we're around, and whether we happen to have been raised in the middle of the United States of America, or whether we were raised in New York City, or whether we were raised in Portland, Oregon, or whether we were raised in Dallas, Texas. There are different conditioning practices employed in each of those places, just as well as there's different conditioning practices employed in every different place that this body may begin its existence on this planet. And in each case, the body is taught pretty much, and we have to remember that part of this body, this three-dimensional body, is its brain and its emotions and its ego. And that is what is trained by our parents, by our schools, by our governments, by the rules and regulations of the land in which we live, by the rules of the land, by the rules of our town, by the rules of our state, by the rules of our country. Those are the conditionings that we are raised up with from the time we are born that establish the parameters for our function on this planet Earth. Until as an individual, one chooses to perceive a larger or grander or more spiritual place of existence for oneself. In the choice of that, which many of us do, many of us are brought to that place where we choose the state of our being. And the folks that I end up sharing with most often, the folks that may be sharing with me today here, often are people who have embraced the idea and have realized the experience that this body is simply a vehicle for a consciousness, and that consciousness is all that is. I am the divine expression of all that is, being carried around in this three-dimensional body, which in that, as an expression of all that is, I am eternal. So this body is the body I chose to carry me around on this planet, really not dissimilar from choosing the car I drive. We can look at it from a montage of ways, but for this day's teaching, let's just say that we choose this body and we travel around in it. So we choose this body. This body is manifest on this planet Earth. The guidelines for operation on this planet Earth are given to us through training by the society around us, by our parents, by our grandparents, by our tribe, by our church, by our government, by our civic location. All to do with this material existence. And out of that we operate. Now, if we are born into a society that considers it appropriate to distinguish differences between the human bodies in this locale relative to where they happen to have their dwelling, then there are distinctions presented to us and trained into us as to the differences between the group that is living in a dwelling over here and a group that is living in a dwelling over here and a group that is living in a dwelling over here. That is how we are trained. And that particular example could be extrapolated out to the end of the day. But when I choose, when you choose, when we choose to experience ourselves as a spark of all that is, then that supersedes the training that we experienced as human beings being on the planet and takes a different flavor. And so all of those rules and all of those guidelines and all of those conditions and all of those parameters with which we were trained must be undone. Because very frequently those conditions and those trainings were operating out of a place of survival. And when we embrace ourselves as a divine spark of all that is, we realize that we are eternal. Once we realize that we are eternal, then the survival mechanism is not the paramount operation in this experience. And so we need some guidelines, we need some guiding principles with which to replace the fear-based conditioning. And so there are a montage of guiding principles. I personally have chosen about a dozen specific guiding principles that I make choices in this experience, in this three-dimensional body with, so as to recondition or retrain myself to be focused on expansion as compared to survival. The, the real point of this experience is to realize that I am the presence of all that is all the time and all is well. Yet to interact with and to be part of the rest of my fellow humans on this planet, I must have some guiding principles to operate by. And fear for this person is not an acceptable principle. So I have chosen specific guiding principles to operate by, to shape my mind with, to shape my emotions with, to shape my actions with, to reshape my ego with. And the guiding principles are honesty, saying what is so in a kind and forgiving way. Hope, the knowing that all is well. Faith, the belief in the knowing that all is well. Courage, the fortitude, the wherewithal to speak, I am the presence of all that is, and all is well. Integrity, to be consistent, to be consistent, to say, I am the presence of God and all is well, and then be the presence of God, all is well. Willingness, the willing is the shaping of the mind and the emotions to embrace something other than how they were trained previously. a willingness, a desire, humility, to see myself as a part of all that is, not as all that is, but as all that is together, equally. All that is all that is. And once I perceive myself in a space of that grandeur, this human experience is humbled in that vast awareness. I perceive my humanness as small in comparison. Brotherly love. I reach out to my fellow sparks of all that is, and I embrace them as myself, and I support them, and I help them. And sometimes helping them is speaking the truth in honesty, yet in a very, very caring and a very, very nurturing way. Discipline. I must call myself forward. I must use my spiritual, intuitive nature to continuously remind this consciousness that all is well, that all is well, and we are all in this together. We are one. And what hurts any spark of all that is, any aspect of all that is, hurts all of all that is. And that hurt is not necessarily a physical hurt. It is frequently an ethereal hurt. Perseverance. I must remain steady to these understandings. I must remain steady and connected to this set of principles as my guiding light. Awareness. I must be conscious when I am straying off the beam. I must be conscious when I am falling into survival mode. I must be conscious when I'm falling into competitive mode. I must be aware of that. And finally, I must be of service. I must shape myself to serve. I must shape myself to be a servant to myself and to all that is. I realize that I am the presence of God wherever I am. And this human body is its vehicle, its servant. And not only is this vehicle serving this particular aspect of all that is, it is here to serve